Tonight I will be showing you how to implement basic movement in Unity. I don't think any more details are needed, let's just move to Unity. Right now in our scene we only have one obstacle, but I want to create more. So in order to do that, we'll create our first prefab. In Unity, a prefab is a template that acts as a template for game objects. Prefabs allow you to create, store and reuse your game objects throughout your project. On the previous video, in our assets folder, we created two folders of our own. One is for materials and another is for the scripts. We'll create a third folder and that will be for our prefabs. We'll be calling this prefabs. All we need to do is grab our obstacle object and then drag it into our prefabs folder in order to turn it into a prefab. Now all we need to do is create instances, aka clones of this prefab. Now I will be arranging my obstacle projects. I'll be cloning my prefabs, some here, some there. You don't have to do the exact same thing I do. You can do your own thing with your obstacles, your arrangements. That's completely fine. So I will be skipping this part and then I will see you in the result. Now we have a basic scene here. We have our player object right here in the middle with obstacles all around them. Our goal here is to make it so our player character can move across obstacles and avoid them. In order to do that, we need to get into input-based movement. We want to be able to move our object around with our keyboard. For example, pressing W to move forward, A and D to move left or right, and finally S to move backwards. But before we do that, we need to make a small adjustment in our Unity editor settings. You need to go to the edit and then go to project settings, go to player, and then finally you will see here active input handling. We have two options for this. First, we have the newer input system package, and then we have the outdated input manager. What we will do works with the input manager and not the input system package. So for now we will be switching to the outdated handling. In the future we can switch back to input system package, and we probably will as we get into more complex topics. But for now the input manager option is much better, much more fitting. We will click apply. And it will restart our project. Click no on this warning, and there we go. First, we need to add two variables for our script. One will determine if we want to move left or right, and the other will determine if we want to move up, forward or backwards. Let's define our variables. Let's call one of them horizontal input and the other vertical input. We are defining these variables here because we want to use this all across our script. For example, maybe if we define our, let's say, horizontal input, we defined our horizontal input in our start method, but we won't be able to use this in our, for example, update method. Let's try. Yeah, it doesn't recognize it. But if we define what we want here, you can see that we can access it in our start method as well as our update method. Now, in order to set these two variables up, we need to use the input class. In input, in Unity, we can read the input of the keyboard using the input class. And then we can use that input data to do stuff in our code. To set them up, we will write the following. Horizontal input equals input get axis raw, and then horizontal. It's similar for the vertical input get axis raw, and then vertical. These two horizontals, These two axes, horizontal and vertical, are already set up by default in Unity's input manager menu. Horizontal covers A and D, left and right, and vertical covers up and down, S and W. Let me see if I can make this make more sense. Pressing D makes our horizontal input return 1, return S1. Pressing A makes our horizontal input return a negative 1. And finally, doing nothing makes our horizontal input return 0. It's the same with our vertical input, but the only difference is it's with W and S. With S making it return negative 1. Knowing this, let's create a direction that we can move our object in. We will be writing vector tree. Let's call it direction, and then new vector. And just like that. For example, let's say that we press W. If you press W, then this direction will be 1, 0, 0. If you press S, on the other hand, it will be 0, 0, and negative 1. But let's say that you press W and D at the same time. Then our direction will be 1, 0, and 1. Now that we have a direction in which our character or object will move in, let's translate our object. We will be getting rid of this line right here, and instead we will write a new translate line. Transform.translate. We will first give our direction, and then finally time delta time. Let's save and test our code. But before we start testing, I want to change the position of my camera. So instead of changing it with our move tool, I'll be changing my perspective. Then while selecting our main camera, I'll be going to the game object, and then I will be clicking align with view. And there we go. Now let's see if our game object is gonna move based on our keyboard input. There we go. But I can see that I made a mistake while aligning my camera. Instead of making it look this way, we will be making it look this way. So let's again go to game object, and then click align with view. This angle will make our movements more accurate. So far, this looks fine. It works without a problem. But I want something more. I want to make our game objects much faster. So in order to do that, we need to create a speed multiplier. Heading back to our code, let's try multiplying this with, for example, 3, to see if that will make a big difference. Now that we have a speedy multiplier, let's try again. And there we go. As you can see, our game object is moving much faster now. Now that our player object can avoid obstacles, I want to make it so the obstacles are actually dangerous. Let's say that if our player object touches an obstacle, it will trigger a collision event that destroys our player object. Right now, in our collision event method, or on our on collision enter method, it's made so when we collide with an object, a message in... I'm so sleepy. So right now, when we touch an object, when we collide with an object, a message will be displayed in our console window. But instead of that, we will be writing game object is destroyed. Or instead of that, I accidentally wrote the wrong code. Instead of that, we can write destroy game object. Let's save our code, and we can see that our player object gets destroyed when it collides with our ground object. But we want to make it so this collision event happens only when our object collides with an obstacle, not the ground. When our object collides with the ground, nothing should happen. So we need to specify that in our code. In our onCollisionEnter method, we need to create a if statement, a condition. For example, if blah blah, then this happens. In our case, if the player hits an object, then the collision event happens. Let's try something like if collision game object name starts with, and then finally give it a name. Then we should destroy our game object. In our hierarchy, all of our obstacle objects have the name obstacle. Sure, it may say obstacle 1, obstacle 2, but all of their names starts with obstacle. So that's the angle we are going with. Now, ideally, when our game object, when our player character hits the ground, nothing should happen. But when our object hits the obstacles, then the collision event should happen. Let's see if that will happen that way. And there we go. Our object is hitting the ground right now and it isn't destroyed. But let's try colliding it with one of the obstacles. And there it goes. And that's it, folks. I go take some... I need to sleep.